Hey, all you experts out there. This is the Monetize Your Expertise podcast, where we show you how to use your skills to pay the bills. Have you ever wanted to create a business that positions you as the industry leader and go-to expert? Join me every week to hear from amazing leaders and entrepreneurs who have successfully refined their skills in order to become experts and create extremely profitable knowledge businesses. To find all of the links and tools mentioned in this episode, just go to myepodcast.com. I'm your host, Grant Weherley, the online course guy, helping you every week to monetize your expertise. Hey, podcast listeners. In this episode, I interview Phil Ebiner. Now, Phil is a true online course creation expert. He's got 39 plus courses under his belt on topics from After Effects and Photoshop to how to brew your own beer and adopt a cat. So he's covered the whole gambit of online course topics and types. He's a true expert. He's making like 10K plus per month just on Udemy alone. Does it full time. Got a lot of great tips for us, and we dive in deep into best practices of online course creation and a whole lot more. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, today I am very thankful to have Phil Ebiner, video creator turned online course creator, best-selling Udemy instructor. Thanks for joining me today, Phil.
Hey Grant, it's my pleasure and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to have you on today because we've kind of been on the same sort of Udemy roundtables before.
Yeah.
And I know you've got a lot of really great courses out there. You've had a lot of success as well. And so I'd love to talk to you about your background, sort of how you got into this, some of the strategies that you use, things like that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds great. I love hearing other people's stories, and so hopefully my story can inspire some new online instructors to get started.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So, I mean, that might be a good place to start. So is this something that you recommend to most people?
Oh, yeah. Teaching online has literally, no hesitation, changed my life. It has been hard. It's been a lot of work, but after a few years of doing this, it's one of the greatest things that I've put a lot of time and effort into. I mean, just the little things from making some extra money on the side to big things like being able to travel with that money. And now I'm basically doing this full time. I am a video creator. That's sort of my background. So I do a lot of freelance video work. And I've held full-time jobs for most of my career, but I've also tried to do freelancing full-time, but it's always been so stressful trying to keep up with the work and find new jobs all the time. And so finding this teaching online thing where I can create courses and make somewhat passive income has really made freelancing and doing video creation a lot less stressful. And that's what I'm doing full-time now. I'm just teaching online classes and making videos and doing exactly what I love doing. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, that's great. And so what did it look like before you started doing this? What were you up to then?
So before I started teaching, and I've been teaching online since 2012. So October 2012 was the first month that I launched a course on Udemy. And before then, I had no experience teaching online and not very much experience building a brand or putting together websites or anything. I had graduated from college a couple years before, and I was at my first or second really entry level job. And I mean, I was just like typical post-grad life. I had a lot of student loans. I was kind of just ready to move out of my parents' house, and I did, but I was struggling to pay the bills and save for any sort of future. And so I was just kind of getting by. And then I found this site called Udemy, and I was working at a school doing video creation, and they were themselves trying to build an online library of courses. And so I had to do a lot of research for different sites on how do you publish courses online, how do you create courses, what type of content is there. And I found Udemy, and it was this place where literally anybody could teach a course about anything. And I thought that was awesome. And I just kind of thought to myself, why can't I do this? Why not? And so I I tried teaching my first course, and it's been a crazy whirlwind since then. But yeah, before, like I said, I had no experience, and I don't know if you're different, but I didn't have any teaching experience really either. And so I know from that first course and a lot of my first courses, I've gotten a lot better at explaining myself, being able to speak on camera. But no experience. And I think that's one of the coolest things about teaching online is that you don't have to have a credential. You don't have to have a master's degree. A lot of the classes that do really well are ones that just are on life skills or different skills that anybody else might want to know. And if you have those skills, you'll be able to teach it with a little bit of practice, a little bit of technical skill, and a little bit of hard work too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the interesting things about Udemy and I guess other platforms, although I saw that Udemy was doing this first, which is, I guess you got things like Coursera or whatever that are produced by like actual universities and professors, and they go that route. So, but it's really interesting things like Udemy, where it's like you said, like literally anybody can produce a course as long as it's up to certain standards, which is really interesting because so having talked with lots of course creators, a lot of them kind of have that sense that like, who am I to teach for the first time and put something out there on the internet, some product,
Right.
having never taught a course, right?
Yeah.
And so also the flip side of that is it's interesting is I've heard that as a criticism of Udemy that like, pretty much anybody can produce a course and so they're low quality, etc. But actually it seems like, the cream rises to the top. And so just because anybody can produce a course doesn't mean they're all bad. There's probably lots of bad or, mediocre low end courses on there, but of course they don't do very well and they disappear pretty quickly.
Yeah, totally. And I think Udemy has consistently, the entire time that I've been on the platform for almost 3 years now, they've tried to improve the process to make sure that the courses are higher quality. And now that there's, I don't know how many instructors, I would guess almost 10,000 instructors now or more, and millions of students, there are going to be lots of courses that aren't good. And that's one area that I feel personally really lucky that I came into this whole thing with experience making videos, and I had a little bit of equipment. So my first course, I had a camera and decent audio, and I knew how to work a computer. And that's the biggest stepping stone for a lot of people, and the biggest roadblock is figuring out what equipment to get and getting the right tools to make a decent sounding and decent looking class. But it just takes a little bit of effort, and the equipment doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, I still use a Blue Snowball microphone, which was less than $50 on Amazon for most of my courses. And screen recording software like ScreenFlow or Camtasia is $100. And with those two tools, you can create free slides on Google Docs and basically have a really good looking course and good sounding course with $150 invested. And that's a pretty small investment for some of the returns that we're getting from these courses. I mean, for example, I had a course, just my latest big course that I put together was my photography masterclass. And it was the first course that I co-taught with a friend of mine. And so we were splitting the revenue 50-50. But we probably spent a solid like 2 weeks of full-time work in that course. So maybe 80 hours a piece, which isn't that much actually. And we've each made 20 grand from that course. And that is after a lot of work. This is where I am today with a lot of students and having done a lot of courses on Udemy. But it's literally crazy how it sometimes classes click and sometimes they don't. But for 80 hours of work, that's a bigger return on your investment than anything else that I've ever invested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what kind of timeline was that over, the 20 grand?
That has been since February of this year, so a little over 6 months.
Nice. That's awesome. And I know that's just
Yeah.
one of many courses that you have as well.
Yeah, and that one is probably my best so far in terms of the most earning in the shortest amount of time. I mean, I've created courses that have done only a couple $100 in sales. So that's one area where I am focusing more now on trying to create courses that I know will have a good return.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of hit on something interesting there, which is by the very nature of a marketplace, right? Whether it's courses for Udemy, or I've talked to people who they've had Kindle publishing businesses, and it's the same way as well. They have some books that will make like 20 grand, other books will make like $100. And it's just kind of the nature of the beast. And you do your best to put out good content or pick good topics or validate the idea. But at the end of the day, part of the strategy is to diversify because you don't know what's going to work.
Right.
So I'm curious for you, how do you go about picking your topics? Like maybe in the past, and how are you going about that now?
Yeah. So in the past, and even till now, I've always just tried to make sure that it's a topic that I love to teach and love to talk about. And so for those very first classes, I basically looked at my skill set, and I looked at not only my professional skill set, but what do I like to do on the side? What do I like to think about and talk about with my friends? And it was all related to making videos and photography. And so all my first classes were video editing classes, photography classes, classes on how to make better videos, and all the tools that I use to make videos. And all of those did pretty well. But at a point, I got a little bored and I wanted to expand my course library. And I taught some fun classes on how to brew beer. I love baseball, so I taught a class on how baseball works. And those, I knew they weren't going to make a lot of money. I knew those weren't going to be huge earners at all. And those are the classes that I mentioned that have made maybe a couple $100. But they were fun to teach. And if I would give any advice to new instructors, if you're creating your first course, really don't worry about the money that you might or might not get from this class, because chances are your first class is not going to be your best class. It's not going to be the highest quality class in terms of the way it looks, the video, the design, the audio is not going to be that great. And your delivery as a teacher isn't going to be great, because it takes a little bit of practice to know how to deliver online to a camera or to a microphone. And even if you're a teacher that teaches in front of 30 or 50 students every day, it's going to be different. And so I highly suggest just choosing a topic that you love to talk about, so that when you create your first class, you have fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, then I think it's kind of a sign that maybe you're not cut out for teaching online. Because if you're trying to create a class on something you love and you're just not having fun with it, maybe it's not for you. But if you do have fun teaching that class, then you're going to create a better class because you'll be happier doing it. You'll put more effort into it. And that will set you up for the next classes that you can teach, which I do suggest trying to figure out what classes and what topics will make money. Because I could do this. I couldn't do this if I wasn't making money from it. It would be a lot of fun, but if I wasn't making any money, I would probably be spending my time doing other things. And so the return, the money that I make from these courses keeps me going. And so now when I look for topics to teach, I do a little bit of research. So I'll definitely, if I have a topic come to my mind, I'll look on Udemy to see if there's classes out there. And if there are classes out there that are successful, then I think that's a really good thing, actually, because that shows that there are students searching for those keywords, searching for those classes, and taking those classes. And so that's the first thing, is just search on Udemy for the topic and see if there's other classes out there. And then just in general, search for online classes or YouTube videos of that topic and see on Google and see if those videos or those other courses exist. I think YouTube is a huge tool for research. It's hard for some people to understand that even if there's lots of free videos out on YouTube, that a course on the same subject might actually still be very successful. But it goes for all of my classes. All of the content that I teach in my classes could probably be found on YouTube for free somewhere, with videos that have millions of views. but people like the curated way that Udemy and these other platforms like Skillfeed or Skillshare present the online courses. And so if there's popular videos on YouTube, again, I think that just proves that the topic is something that people are interested in. And so I think that's the main things that I do now in terms of choosing a course topic from scratch, is just seeing if there's some sort of popularity out there. And then after I teach a course on a specific topic, I'll create classes that are more advanced and related to that topic. And those are the ones that I feel like I can do really well with. Because say I teach a class on Adobe After Effects, which is a tool that I use to create animations. I can, and I did create a course on the basics of using After Effects. And a lot of people enrolled in that class. But then I could go further and teach classes on some advanced skills or some specific uses for After Effects, like creating titles or creating motion graphic animations of a specific style. And I can try to cross promote those courses to the students that are in my existing After Effects classes. And so I guess my 3-step plan would be to create your first class on something you love, just to make sure that you actually enjoy teaching online. Second is to do a little bit of research on YouTube, Udemy, and just on Google to see if there are blogs and other websites about the topic that you want to teach, just to see if it's popular. And then third is just to continue to build out courses on that topic so that you can cross promote those new courses to your current students.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you just hit on a lot of really great ideas. And it's funny, as you were talking about the concept that the topics of your course and what you teach in your course, the information could probably be found somewhere inevitably online for free. But that's pretty much true for anything. And it's interesting because I literally just had a discussion about this last night, because it's really interesting to think about that that's true for so many different things. And, what people are paying for is essentially the time and effort and expertise that you've had to have and invest in order to take all of that stuff that you've learned, maybe free or paid, and then condense it down into something that's very, step by step and very clear and very well produced. So people don't have to be searching around endlessly for hours for random YouTube videos trying to piece everything together. Because yes, that could be done, but it's like actually really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I've had people raise that objection before, back when I first started creating courses, because they talk about things in that way, right? It's like, oh, you can just find everything online. Why would somebody pay for that?
Right.
But at that point, they're missing the point, right?
Totally. And it goes the same for books or anything. I mean, you could find anything on Wikipedia, but you buy books about a topic because it's curated and it's easy to find information. So it's the same for online courses. And the only other thing about comparing yourself to other courses, because that's another thing is, and when I started, I would see other courses that were really good about topics that I wanted to teach. And I thought, well, there's already a great course out there, and that other teacher's really good. They know their stuff. They probably know more than me, actually. And so it would discourage me from even trying to teach that course. But that's something that I suggest trying to avoid. And if there is a class out there that has a teacher that teaches it really good, know that you're going to teach it in a different way, whether from whatever background you are and however you teach it, people will probably enjoy the way you teach it more than the other instructor. And some people might like the other instructor more, but there probably are people out there that will enjoy the way you teach. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm teaching a wedding photography class with a friend. And Udemy just sent out a email with the top 10 photography courses. And it was like the hottest photo courses of the month or something. And there was a wedding photography course that was number 2. And so I checked it out and it was pretty good. The guy he had an entire staged wedding that he walked people through and did the course. But it was also live. And so I thought that's a pretty good course. But if I make a course that's specifically for online and it's not just a live training that was filmed, that we could create something even better. And so try not to be afraid of teaching a course if you see someone that's out there teaching the same subject who might be better than you. Because I think if you put a lot of work into it, people will find your course and will probably enroll.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great point. And especially taking the perspective that if something's successful on the similar or even the same topic as what you're trying to create, that's not a bad thing. Actually, it can be a good thing if there's that kind of validation that works, right?
Yeah.
But it's also not like totally crowded. So where there's 20,000 courses on that exact same topic, so it still leaves you room to have your unique angle on it. So I agree completely with that. So I'm curious now, how many courses do you have total now? And like what's so I know actually early on you were one of the people I remember being picked up and like shown as like one of like the top 10 most successful instructors or something like that pretty early on actually. So I'm curious kind of like overall what your experience has been, what kind of results you've gotten with like number of courses and course earnings and things like that, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty nuts. I have 43 courses now that I've published.
Whoa. I didn't realize there was that many.
Yeah, actually 43 that I'm working on. A few are in the works. Some are just draft courses that I've put up there, and a couple are just free courses that are just parts of paid courses that I've made free.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like 35, about 35 real courses. And I know it is a crazy number. It's a lot, but that's one thing. The reason why I became successful at this is because for the first year when I discovered this whole Udemy thing in October 2012, again, I was living in this little dinky apartment by myself, and I was so cheap that I didn't buy internet for myself. And so I literally would go home from work after an 8-hour day and go home and record courses for, I would say, 4 or 5 out of 7 days a week. And so that's what I did for about a year. And I created, I would say, 15 or 20 of my courses in that first year. And I was just pedal to the metal, just working as hard as I could just to create content. And I wasn't too worried about the quality of the courses. I just want to get out as much content as possible. I know perfection is something that holds a lot of people back, and it's hard for people to let go of being perfect and actually publish their courses, but I just went for it. Now I look back at my courses from that year and I realize there's a lot of things I would change, but I think that 1 year without internet, just putting together courses was a real good experience, and I learned a lot. And so from there, I just kept creating courses at a little bit of a slower pace. I'm looking at my Udemy page right now. I have 74,000 students overall. And on Udemy, I've earned just under 160,000. And so for the past year, it's averaged around 9,000, I would say, per month in earnings. That hasn't always been like that. My first month, I made $60, and back then that was amazing. I had never done anything online where I made money from it, and I'd always been entrepreneurial, so I was always trying to figure out ways to make money online or make money selling stuff on eBay, but it had never worked until this. And it just slowly ramped up, and I had my first $1,000 month in April of 2013. So that was about a half year after I started. And then let me find my first 10K month. It was probably within the past year, about a year ago. So about a year and a half or 2 years into it. And so it's slowly kind of ramped up. I mean, I'm not complaining at all, but for the past year, it's sort of remained steady, even though I've put out more and more courses. And so I'm kind of playing this game where I just keep putting out more courses and the revenue kind of stays in the same place. And it's a little worrisome because if I stop putting out new courses, I would assume that my income would decrease. But again, I can't complain because I went from a place where I was not making that much money, student loans, not traveling, not doing anything fun, to now where I've been able to travel to places like the Philippines or Europe. I've been able to buy an engagement ring and get married and pay for a wedding and
congratulations, by the way.
Quit my job. Yeah, thanks. That was this past March, and so that was really awesome. And then moved to a new place and started my full-time online business lifestyle, and still been able to save and work towards a goal of financial freedom in the next, I would say, decade. And so it's been nuts. And this is just on Udemy. I put my courses on Skillfeed, Skillshare, and Adobe knowhow.com. Those are the ones that have done really well for me. And so Skillfeed and Skillshare, I've averaged about 1,000 per month for the past 6 months or so.
Nice.
So yeah, it's kind of nuts, but it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic story, and I want to congratulate you on your success. And yeah, it's interesting actually. The last thing you said, that so you're making like 9,000 ish from Udemy and about 1,000 ish from Skillfeed, Skillshare. It's interesting because that's actually the sort of the rule of thumb I've been saying, is that from a lot of the people I've talked to, it's about 10% of whatever you're making on Udemy, you make about almost exactly 10% on those other platforms, which is really interesting how consistent that is.
Oh, that's good to hear. I've never heard of anyone. I haven't heard numbers for people making money on Skillfeed or Skillshare, so that's good to know.
Yeah, it's usually always like a couple $100 if you're making a couple $1,000. So it works out to be about 10% from at least, maybe 8 or 10 people that I've talked to that use that. So yeah, it's definitely part of a viable strategy. But so it's also interesting to hear you talk about. It's actually going to be my next question, but you kind of already touched on it. Which is, so I've sort of observed that the, say, average earnings per course has kind of gone down over time. I assume as more people have joined the marketplace. And so it sounds like that's true for you as well. And so while it's still obviously extremely lucrative, it's just interesting to watch how the platform, changes over time. So I'm curious, what would you say is the average, in your experience, the average, I don't know, earnings of a course if you average between the ones that make a couple hundred and also many, many thousand? So what's been your experience there?
Yeah, I actually did the math semi recently, and I would say it's about $6,000 or $7,000 per course. So in total earnings. And so, I mean, it's pretty easy to do the math. Actually, I could bring up a calculator right now. On Udemy alone, I've made about 160,000. And so I would say that I have 35 courses. And so that's actually $4,500 on Udemy. But with the other platforms, I'd increase that to about 5,000 or 6,000. And again, some of those courses made $100, and those, like the course about brewing beer or baseball, those ones I can throw out the window because I wasn't really expecting them to make money. But again, $5,000, and it's going to continue to grow, hopefully, knock on wood, for the next few years or longer. So the average per course is going to increase. And for me, it seems to take about an average of 2 or 3 weeks of work of really solid full-time work to create a really good course. So that's a really good hourly wage for doing that amount of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that works out to about I guess, yeah, 10K a month, right? So yeah, it's not bad at all. Even if you stop tomorrow, it all went away. Like the ROI of your time investment there is quite good. But obviously, it would continue on for a very long time, even if you did stop. So that's one of the big advantages I see of online courses, and specifically on things like Udemy. Is that, for example, I haven't made a new course in several months now, actually, and my earnings have actually stayed very, very consistent. And it's pretty cool because, you invest the time, you build the assets, and then they pay off over time. And they might trail off a little bit, or some courses might kind of die off. But at the end of the day, you're still making nice money from things that you've built in the past, which is awesome.
Yeah, totally. And my last ditch thing, if ever Udemy and all the other online platforms go down, is just to put all my videos on YouTube and see if they can make some AdSense. I actually started my channel. So my brand is Video School Online, and I have videoschoolonline.com. And so that's kind of how I brand all my courses. And so I started putting out free videos and tutorials, sometimes that were in my courses, but sometimes just separate videos on YouTube. And the AdSense earnings aren't incredible. I couldn't live off them, but it's slowly increased to now where it's about $100 per month. So I think if I put every single video that I've ever created for a course, which now is in the hundreds, if not thousands of videos, I might be able to make a decent amount of money on just YouTube alone if Udemy for some reason ever goes away. Hopefully not, though.
Yeah, knock on wood. I agree with that. Yeah, and actually, you could always sort of build your own brand and external, thing as well. I think more and more instructors are doing that as well. So I'm curious. So what are some of your top tips, favorite strategies for producing really great content in terms of quality or efficiency? Because I know this is something that now you've had tons of experience and a lot of expertise built in. So I'm curious what your top strategies for that are.
Yeah, so I think the hardest thing for people is to set aside time and just find the time to create courses. And so first of all, just suggest trying to set aside a weekend just to bang out that course, just to record it all, edit it all. It might take a couple of weekends. I mean, even for me, sometimes courses get pushed off, and with everything else, it takes months to put together a course. But recently, with more time on my hands, I've been able to dedicate more time to filming and editing, and it doesn't take that much time if you're doing it 8 hours a day. And so if you really want to get your first course out there, I would say dedicate an entire weekend to it. For promoting courses, I would have to admit that this is an area that I have learned a lot and I've struggled a lot. I've never been really good at promoting or advertising or anything like that, but I've learned a lot. And the best success that I've had is kind of what I mentioned before, is being able to cross promote my courses to my current students. And there was a threshold, I can't remember exactly when it was, but whenever I started putting out course announcements, I noticed that I got a lot of people purchasing them. And maybe it was starting when I had about 10,000 students in all of my classes. But at that point, whenever I put out an announcement, I was pretty much guaranteed to make something. And now I feel like whenever I put out an announcement, I'll make about $500. And I remember thinking when I was starting, I think I asked someone on the Udemy team, either on Facebook or an email, about that, because I had heard that someone made like $10,000 from a course announcement. And I was like, how is that even possible? And they basically said, well, they have like 100,000 students or something nuts like that. I think it was like one of the first Microsoft PowerPoint or Excel courses. And they had like thousands and thousands of students. And I thought, oh, well, I'm never going to get to that point. But slowly I started getting more and more students. And now with 74,000 students, if I send out an announcement, it's reaching a good percentage of those students. And so when I send out an announcement, the things that have been the most successful for me are launching courses with a limited number of coupons. I'm sure that other people have talked about this before, but launching with a limited amount of coupons and increasing prices. So for example, if I'm launching a course at $99, I might launch it and send out a promotional announcement saying that I'm giving away this course for a crazy $19 deal for the first 10 students. It's $29 for the next 10, $39 for the next 10, or it could be different numbers. It could be $19 for the first 50 students or the first 100 students. And sometimes I've launched courses with a $19 price point for the first 100 students, and they've all sold out. And so having those sort of increasing prices, it puts the pressure on the students to have to buy it or they have to pay more. And so if they're at all interested, then they're going to purchase that course. And the amazing thing is that there are so many students on Udemy that are just ready to buy courses. And the sad thing is that we live and work on Udemy in a place where people aren't going to pay the full price for courses. And that's always been a complaint of instructors, but we kind of just have to live with it and expect that you might get a full price sale from time to time, but in general, people are going to be paying $10, $20, $30 for your courses. And so creating your promo announcements in a way that really gets people to actually make that purchase, or if they don't make it right then, they lose out, is important. So that's been really successful at those increasing prices and the limiting the coupons. And then I always try to keep my announcements short and sweet. I see a lot of instructors putting out announcements that have an email that you have to scroll down a number of times to get to the bottom, and they're selling every single course that they have for a discount, and they include the course image for every single course. And maybe they have success with that, but for me, I've always had more success when I'm promoting a single course or a single subject of courses. So I'll promote all of my photography courses at one time, or all of my After Effects courses at one time, or all of my courses related to teaching online and business at one time. And so limiting yourself to not only just not putting too many images and too much text, especially, but just focusing on one course to promote at a time is important. And then one thing that I've started recently been doing, I'm kind of following a list of things that I wrote down, is updating my courses. And so when I started creating courses, I was pretty good at creating videos, but I was still lazy. And I don't know why, but I wouldn't use the right microphone, even though I had it. I wouldn't use my professional video camera. I would just use my webcam. And it shows in the courses, and it especially shows in the promo videos of those courses. And now Udemy, with the way that the promo pages are laid out, that promo video is up top, really big, and students will probably click on it. Before, it was like a little video player in the corner, and I don't know why they did that, but now they're really important. And so some of my old promo videos were really bad, and just recently I started redoing them. And I know Udemy put out sort of a template for a good promo video. I think if you go to Google and you just type in Udemy promo announcement, it might pop up. Let me just make sure. But yeah, it's Udemy course announcement rules and guidelines. It's the first thing that pops up if you Google Udemy promo announcement. They have a great guide for creating a promo video. It says in the first 10 seconds, you have to say this. In the next 20 seconds, you have to make sure that you hit these points. And I did that for 6 or 7 of my courses, my most popular courses, and instantly I started getting more sales for those courses. And so if you have a course that hasn't been selling, try looking at that promo video and see if you can make it better, because not only it might just get refreshed in the Udemy system, and people clicking on your course page might be more likely to actually purchase it if you have a better promo video. So those are a couple of my tips for improving Udemy courses and your promotional announcements in a long-winded way.
No, that was good. You just hit on a lot of really important things. And so to just jump in there to sort of give my own experience, I've tried the same. Actually, so first, to sort of define terms here in case anybody's new to the terms of promotional announcements, promo video, etc. So promotional announcements are essentially the emails you can send through Udemy's dashboard, through their platform, to students who are enrolled in some of your courses. And so it's a good way to market other courses of yours as well. And that's called a promotional announcement. And then a promo video is just the video that people can watch to sort of like advertise your course. So you go to the course page, there's a video that's now quite large and quite emphasized, as Phil mentioned. And it's what you can watch before you purchase to sort of describe the course and sell the person on the idea of buying the course. And so I can say that I've tried that exact same strategy that you mentioned, which you have those tiers of pricing where you give out the coupon codes and it goes, 10 to this price, 10 to this price, 10 to this price, etc. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's amazing that you sold 100 coupons at $19. That's not a bad way to quickly make $2,000, right?
Yeah.
For email. Yeah, and so I've tried that as well. It's really, really effective. And I just made a note down to myself to do that on my next promotional announcement because I had forgotten to do that recently.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got another one coming up here too. And also, you mentioned how people sometimes get frustrated about how the price gets discounted a lot and how you end up having to discount your own price, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, it was interesting. As you were talking about that, I was thinking how, so essentially you're working full time to make about 9-10 grand a month.
Right.
And so you might be selling most of your courses at $19 or $49 or whatever the price is. Well, I know a lot of people who are working full time to make about the same, oftentimes less, trying to sell $200, $300, $500 courses as well. So actually the ROI is better, the same. It's still really dang good. So at the end of the day, I think that's what really matters, right? And actually there's kind of a side effect that you're able to reach more people, but still make really good money. And so it's kind of almost a win-win, right? The student gets it cheaper, you make just as much money, if not more, actually.
Yeah. And if Udemy continues to expand to new markets, and I know they just got like $65 million in funding to continue to expand, there's not going to be a shortage of students. I mean, there's a lot. There's, I think, like 7 million or something like that on Udemy now, maybe more.
I think it's 10 actually.
Or 10. That's like a lot. But compared to how many people are out there in the world who might be interested in teaching or learning through online classes, there's a lot more people out there. So yeah, like you said, if the ROI, if you're making the same amount of money, I think it's fine. I know there are lots of people who sell their courses on their own websites or through their own way and charging $500, $900 for a single course or a single program. And I've tried to do that in the past and I've never had that much success. I haven't done it for, I'd say, a year and a half or so. But Udemy is great because they promote your courses. There's a marketplace that keeps it organized and basically brings customers to you. So in exchange, you have to charge a little bit of a lower price, but it's worth it. And I know that Udemy did just change it. I think it was today, actually, that the highest course price is $300. And they're doing that in an effort to sort of curb the massive discounts that they have to charge. And maybe someday people will actually just pay the price of the course and there won't be so many discounts. So we'll see though.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you're finding success on the platform, then it's funny sometimes to hear people complain about the discounting thing, and I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but I'm making pretty good money, so whatever they're doing, I encourage them to keep doing it as long as it continues to work. But actually, even if you do the math of even if the population does not grow at all, and there's 10 million students, and you said you have like 75,000 students. Let's round that up to 100,000 students. Well, you've only already enrolled in a single course less than 1% of the entire student population.
Yeah.
So even just that, even if the population doesn't grow at all, then you have like the students join other courses of yours, and you've got reaching the other 99.3% of the market. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of potential there, even with the existing market. And it's definitely rapidly growing because I think they keep getting round after round of investment. Like I keep hearing from more and more people that's like, oh, another $100 million. Oh, another $50 million.
It's crazy. That's really actually interesting about, my 75,000 students is a lot, but it's still a small drop in the big Udemy bucket of students. And actually, I remembered one thing I was going to mention about promotions and sending out those announcements. One thing that I've often done is I've gotten lazy and I just send out the same announcement to all of my students. And so for people who are new at Udemy, a little more background is that you can only send 2 promotional announcements per course per month. And it's a limit so that you can't just be spamming your students every day or every week with coupons or other offers. And so it's actually I think it's a really good thing. And I wouldn't want to be getting emails every day if I was a student. But there is a little bit of a way to get around this, especially if you have a lot of students in your courses and across multiple courses. And that's by your announcement only to specific courses. So say, for example, I have a student enrolled in my photography course and one of my video editing courses. I could send one promo announcement to my photography course that is promoting my other photography classes. And then I could send another announcement to my video course promoting my video classes. And I could send those announcements twice per month. And so in essence, that student, if you have students that are in multiple courses, they get 4 announcements from you per month. And the more announcements up to a limit, it means that they might be more likely to purchase your courses. If you pass that limit, they're going to feel like they're getting spammed and hate you and want to turn off notifications and give you a bad rating. So you have to be careful. But that's one thing that I've sort of found recently is doing more targeted promo announcements is actually a good idea for not only expanding my reach, but also just targeting the right audience for a specific type of announcement.
That's brilliant. I actually never really thought about the implications of students double enrolled and how you can leverage that to essentially send them more offers. That's really interesting. I never thought of that myself in that way, and also I haven't heard another instructor have that perspective brought up either. So I really thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. I'm writing that down so I can think about that later.
Great. I'm glad to have said something new, because sometimes I know, some of these podcasts, I feel like I'm just saying the same thing everyone else is saying, or just repeating the same thing that I always say. But it's good to know that I still have some new tricks up my sleeve.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, right? So I guarantee you there's a lot of people listening today who don't know hardly anything that you've said. And so maybe some people know a lot of it, some people know a little bit, and some people are very new to all of it. So that's, I think, where the value lies, even if you are just saying the same thing every time you're interviewed. But actually, yeah. So, and I know a lot about this, and there's been a couple of things that are totally new to me. So I think everybody's probably learning today. So
cool.
So I'm curious, as a couple final questions. So what would you do differently, or would you do it the same if you had to completely start over from scratch on Udemy?
I think that's a great question. And there's lots of things I would just say, I would just do it the same. And it's hard to kind of think, well, why would I do it any differently? I'm at a place that's amazing where I'm making a lot of money from this and I'm really living the life that I love. But if I were to start over, like I mentioned, I just wouldn't get lazy when I was creating my first courses, because like I said, I had the audio equipment, I had a great camera that can shoot great video, but I would still just create courses, opening up my laptop, using the webcam and using the internal microphone for my courses. And now I look back on those courses and a lot of them are trash that I'll either have to just redo, or if I don't redo, they're just going to die and no one's going to enroll them as more and more better classes get created. And so when starting out, I just wish I would have spent a little bit more time, and maybe in that year where I was just creating courses, instead of creating 15 courses, maybe I should have just created 5 or 7 and done them just a lot higher quality. And so that's like the main thing I think that I would change. And then the other thing that I always try to limit myself from throughout this entire time is just, instead of, I know I'm saying this on a podcast where we're talking about my story, but instead of just listening to podcasts and reading about other instructors' stories, I would just spend the time and do it and work on your own courses. And it's good to get inspired by other instructors and their stories. But if you don't actually just do it and practice and learn yourself, then you're never going to get good at it. And so that's something that I spend a lot of time just listening to inspiring stories, and it's great. But if I spent half of that time actually creating my own products and content, I would be at a even better place than I am now. And then the last thing I would say in terms of doing something differently isn't necessarily on Udemy, but on my website, I would have started creating an email list earlier and better. And I know there's like a quote about how your email list is I don't know what, but it's like basically where like your email list is where it's at, and you need an email list because you have control of it. And that's something that I didn't spend a lot of time working on until recently. And so I've had this website for a few years and it has like over 2,000 subscribers now. But up until I'd say 3-4 months ago, it had just over 1,000, maybe 1,500. And in the past few months, I've been able to increase that to over 2,000 using better lead magnets, so better offers basically for giving me their email. So when you create an email list, the best way is to give something away in return for that email. And for a long time, I was just giving away coupons to my course, knowing that they probably could just go to Udemy and find a better coupon. And it just didn't work. And recently I wrote a 47-page guide that's related to one of my courses on freelancing. And now I'm giving it away on my website in exchange for an email. And the amount of subscribers has doubled on a daily rate. And so that is something that I would also change or do better if I could start over again.
Nice. I think we should trademark that quote of yours, by the way. The email list is where it's at.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, I think we've heard it from a Udemy master that the secret sauce is to maybe learn a bit, but at the end of the day, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and just go out there and make awesome content, and then that's where the results lie. Is that a fair extrapolated lesson from your takeaway there?
Yeah, I think if you could just snip that out, put that at the front of the podcast, and that's pretty much all they need to know.
Cool. I'll just make it like a 30-second long one.
Yeah.
So, yes, what are you currently working on, and where do you plan to go in the near future in terms of your projects?
Yeah, right now I am just having a really good time doing this full time for really the first time. For a little while I was in between jobs and working on my courses for most of my time, but I wasn't at a place where I was making full-time income with it. So I was still pressured to find a new job and do other work. And now where I'm at, I'm relatively comfortable, or I'm very comfortable with the amount of money I'm making. And so I'm just having a good time just making my website better. That's videoschoolonline.com, and putting out new YouTube videos and creating new courses and creating courses with friends, because my last course the photography masterclass course that I put out, which was very successful with my friend Sam, it was so much fun to create a course with someone else. And so I'm doing more of that right now. So I have a wedding photography course coming out. I have a fundraising for film course coming out, and a GoPro video course coming out that I'm working on right now. And so I'm just working on courses. In the long run, I want to have a library of courses on all things video related. So instead of going to film school, people can just take all of my courses and basically learn everything that I know and everything that one would basically learn going to a film school. And yeah, just continue building content. And ultimately, one day, the goal is to have financial freedom, be able to live off not only my earnings online, but also investments, and continue to work and do things I love, but ultimately just be free of that stress that most people have. So that's the goal.
Nice, man. That's a really great next steps, and also a life plan that personally resonates with me a lot as well, because it's very similar to mine. I think it's, and probably a lot of people listening, I think it's the same thing that a lot of people aspire to. So yeah, I wish you best of luck with that. And so you can say your URL a little bit slower this time. Where can people go to check out your stuff and your website and see what you're up to?
Yeah, so the website is videoschoolonline.com. No funky letters or anything, just Video School Online. And that's basically where you can find me. I have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page that you can get to from there. And I'm not that great at Facebook, but I've been doing better. And you can also contact me, email me through the website. And I'm always happy to reply to people who are interested in teaching online, or just any other sort of fun topic. And I'm really good at emails, so I'll get back to you within a couple days, typically.
Well, you heard it from the man. He's bad at Facebook, but good at email.
Yeah.
So everybody listening, I hope you found this is super valuable. And if you want to check out what Phil's up to, go to videoschoolonline.com and check out what the master's doing. Yeah, he's kicking butt at it. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And yeah, and I wish you the best of luck in the future with your next projects, Phil.
Thanks a lot, Grant. Good luck with everything on your end, too.
Cool. Thanks. Hey, entrepreneurs and experts, I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you learned at least one new big idea that helps you evolve your skills and gets you closer to monetizing your expertise and creating that successful knowledge business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out myepodcast.com for all episodes as well as the tips and tricks mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.